Hey guys, I'm gonna lose these so you can actually see my face. Um, so today I wanted to talk about ancestral veneration and basically how I work with that in my practice and some book recommendations and kind of what it all is to me. But before I get into that, I wanted to say quickly, I just discovered on YouTube the spam likely folder for your comments. And I've been on YouTube for 2 years. So sorry, guys, if there are some comments that I maybe didn't respond to, you maybe have seen me go back and respond to them. I was going through them last night and realized that there was a ton of them that should have actually been posted and I had never been made aware of. So I apologize for that. And I'll continue to kind of work my way through them and respond as best I can. But I was quite frustrated when I found that out. Secondly, another quick announcement. For those of you who may not know, I will be on a live YouTube show on the 25th of this month at, I believe it is 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll be sure to pop the information down below. I am going to be featured on Brittany, who is Palmtreebewitchery, and Justin, who is Oracle of Glitter here on YouTube. I'm going to be featured on their live show for July's Wine and Witchcraft month, and we are actually going to be talking about this topic. But I've gotten a lot of requests about kind of elaborating on this topic. So although I will have more to say in that live, I did want to do a video just kind of sharing how I work with ancestral at veneration and how my practice kind of came to that and what book recommendations I might have and some kind of little tidbits here and there that might be helpful for those people who are interested in doing ancestral veneration in their path. Now, obviously, this to me is it's I honestly think that it's kind of both tied into my pagan faith, but more so my witchcraft because the two are indeed separate. And although in my personal practice they coexist rather heavily because I am a practicing pagan, but I am also a witch. So um what essentially led me to ancestral veneration is I knew that at some point I would be working with that I would be going that direction, especially given the experiences that I have had with talking to the dead and my own mediumship abilities, which I spent a considerable amount of my life ignoring. Um, but what really brought that to my attention to the point of trying to understand it a little bit better, one stepping stone in that whole path was my grandfather's passing, which was 11 years ago now. But I have had many experiences with him through dreams and feeling his presence and various other things. So it started essentially with honoring him and honoring my uncle, who was his son, who also passed away when I was 9. So I usually kept little mementos and things like that on my altar that involved them. Sometimes I would have them out, sometimes I wouldn't. And when I moved into this house, I knew that eventually I would make a ancestral altar that because I simply would have more space not living in an apartment anymore. But as I was living in an apartment, it was pretty much just occasionally there would be their things on my altar and occasionally not. So my my practice with working with the ancestors was a little bit it wasn't as present as it is now. The other big kicker for me with going on this path was the death of my mother, which only happened 2 years ago. And the experiences that I had around her passing really opened me up in the sense of these abilities. Now, I will preference that you do not have to have any type of mediumship abilities to do ancestral veneration. And with that being said, that also leads into a few other things that I really want to touch on that are important to talk about when it comes to ancestral veneration. Not all of us have a great history or experience with our blood family. and you don't necessarily have to do ancestral veneration. Also, for those who are adopted and don't know their bloodline, you don't have to do ancestral veneration. If, for say, by example, you were adopted, but you had a wonderful childhood growing up with your adopted parents, then take on the ancestors of their line if that's something that is healthy for you to do. But it's okay to have boundaries, and it's okay to have limits on who you want to welcome into your practice. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone that you didn't really respect. There are many people in our family that are toxic, and there are many people in our family that have made terrible decisions and have hurt us, and we don't need to have that in our practice if it's not something that works for you. If it's just painful, then you don't need to welcome them into your practice. With that being said, though, you can either adopt an ancestor in a sense, much as I said, perfect example with an adopted family, or you can do ancestral healing. And that is also something that ties into shadow work, and it is something that can be very heavy and difficult to do. But if it is something that you feel called to do or you're ready to do, my suggestion would be to take it slow and do your best to try and forgive this person for their wrongdoings that they may have caused in life. And I think this also depends very heavily on your view of the afterlife. Lots of people believe that when we transition from life to death and into that plane, it's kind of a clean slate. The wrongdoings that we've created in life are more of a lesson, and the spirit or being that you are contacting from your ancestral line could potentially be a cleansed slate. Obviously, that is up to you to determine whether or not that aligns with your beliefs. For me personally, that's something I'm still kind of working on, just because it's really hard to let go of those feelings, especially if you know someone who did have a very problematic life and did make very poor decisions. And I particularly get very sensitive to those who have actively tried to harm others. So that can be very difficult to navigate with ancestral veneration. So you're looking into doing some healing work with this. It can be extremely cathartic, but it's very difficult, and just prepare yourself because it's going to bring up a lot of shadows and it's going to bring up a lot of potential trauma, and just be wary of that. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm trying to say that it's a long road. And this is something that obviously, like I said, I've been trying to work on too, but there are many cleansing methods that you can do for this. You can do traditional cleansing methods that are commonly used in the for instance, smoke cleansing, burning. My favorite is cedar. That is the herb that I tend to burn for general cleansing. I'm not a big fan of sage. I just don't particularly care for the smell of it. And I'm very connected to cedar. Just it's mostly because I grew up in Washington, and it's just a tree that I'm deeply connected to. But it has amazing cleansing properties. The other one is cleansing through water. So one suggestion that I was given by a good friend of mine is that you can do this in the shower when you're taking a spiritual bath or a spiritual shower. Oftentimes, you could even actually stand out in the rain and do it, which sounds wonderful to me. That's very cleansing. Major bodies of water, you can make a ritual out of it and go swim with your body of water to do a cleansing ritual. Fire is another great cleansing method that you can do for ancestral veneration or ancestral healing and cleansing. Essentially, maybe write down a letter of things that you are upset about towards this particular person, these feelings that you've had, then burn it. Let it go, burn it up, release it. It's extremely, extremely healing to do that stuff. I use that often, honestly, for many different things, but that is one that I really recommend as well. You can also write on like carve sigils and stuff into a piece of bark and bury it in the ground. That is something that you could also even do for like property protection as well, but we're not talking about that today. So there are many different things that you can utilize in your practice for ancestral cleansing and ancestral healing. But again, I will say that if you don't want to work with a specific ancestor just in your bloodline because they are problematic, then don't. Eventually, if you feel called to make that change and take on that kind of healing, then do so. But listen to your intuition and you know what's best for you and what's best for your practice. Now, when it comes to my practice and how I generally use ancestral veneration, I have a altar which I have given a walkthrough of in my bedroom here that has I'll put the link to that video down below, but it has tons of mementos from specific family members of mine that have passed that I felt very connected to and that I loved in life. And this is how I remember them. And this is how I continue to work with their energy. This is a place that's set up in my home where I feel that they can come through and they're welcome to be a part of. Now, there are offerings and things that you can generally leave for your ancestors should you have a good relationship with them, which from this point forth, I'll just talk about, assuming that you do. You can make their favorite food. You can leave their favorite drink. You can leave water. I always leave water on my ancestral altar. Water is to me, it is a portal. So also there is a common belief that the dead are often very thirsty. So that's another reason why I leave that there. I tend to use moon water. I don't know why, I just do. It's just something that I do. But that is something that you can leave out as just a little cup of water. And the other things that I commonly use are I use marigold, dried marigold. Marigold and or calendula are often used in honoring the dead. And that is something that is used in several different cultures. I know Mexico is certainly one of them. So that's something that you can utilize, bearing in mind it's culturally appropriate to do so, of course. But the other things that you can do are you can leave various types of alcohol, and you can make your own oils and incenses for ancestral veneration with herbs that particularly correspond with potentially protection or opening up your psychic senses if you choose to communicate, or just general offering incense as well. Oftentimes I notice my family coming through if I am thinking about them, or if I am sometimes if I'm dusting or cleaning my altar, which is another thing that I will recommend, is take good care of it. Keep it clean, keep it free of dust and debris. Just really nurture it, because it's it's a very sacred space, and I have always held a deep belief that the dead should be respected. So that's one thing that I really want to talk about as well. But trying to catch my train of thought. Oh, right. So there's also a difference between your ancestors and the beloved dead. At least there are some people who believe that they are different. I personally think that they're the same. That's just how I am in my practice. Although when I refer to ancestors, I'm kind of mostly referring to pretty much anybody in my bloodline and anybody that I maybe potentially could have had in past lives. But so when I'm honoring that, I'm also honoring those. But I particularly mostly work more so with my beloved dead, which is the ones that I knew in my life who had an impact on me and have passed away that I personally lost. That is mostly more to do with my abilities as a medium and just the fact that I do communicate with the dead and I'm kind of working on nurturing that. And that is also just how I honor the people that I've lost. And that's always what's felt right to me. And that's just how it's been. And it's the comforting thing too, because grief is hard and grief is messy and grief is a whirlwind of just both positive and negative emotions where your whole world feels like it's upside down. So having a place to honor the people that you loved in your home that you care for is also very healing for your own grief. So that's something to consider. And that's actually one of the reasons why I started doing this a little bit more after losing my mother. Now I'm going to go into some recommendations that I have for materials. I've already recommended, a few herbs and stuff, but the other thing that I want to talk about specifically just for communicating with the dead is that I find that fire scrying with candles, specifically if you do an ancestral candle, that's something that works really well. Pay attention to your dreams because that is also something that I experience quite a bit of. I get a lot of messages through my dreams. Um, Read up on the psychic senses, the clairs. I will smell things sometimes, like I'll smell something that reminds me of my family member, and that's kind of how I know they're around. Oftentimes I can sense their energy, and my family always tends to kind of hang out on my right side. So that's usually how I know that it's them. And the more that you do this, the more you'll start to pick up on their senses. But even if you're not particularly sensitive, this is something that can be developed. So don't think that that can't happen just because you don't tend to experience it. Also, doubt chases away intuition. So try not to doubt yourself. One thing that can really, really help if you're looking to communicate aside from fire scrying is a deck of cards. This is the deck that I specifically use for this purpose, and I love the pick that I got from our wonderful Danimystic here on YouTube. I'll link her shop down below too. See if I can remember all these links that I'm supposed to provide here. But this is the Memento Mori Oracle. This is by Claire Goodchild. I've shared this also on my channel, which is another link I guess I have to put down now. But this deck was actually recommended to me by Tara, who is Kittensweightsandtarot, which is another link I put down on YouTube and on the description box below. But I've tried this out for communicating with spirits, and it's actually worked really, really well. I've gotten very spot on readings, and it's just been really, really helpful for me to have that sort of visual representation, a tool to utilize to really kind of open my intuition. So when it comes to communicating something that can be really helpful, also be sure to protect yourself. So, just have potentially a protection crystal or use your visualization bowl to whatever may work for you for protecting yourself. But you will usually get a good hit on what you are feeling and trust your intuition. Now that's specifically for communicating with the dead. Back to Ancestral Veneration, because for me they tie in very heavily. So this video is going to be kind of a communication of the two of them. And God, I hope it's not rambling. I'm sorry. I have 3 books here that I have in my collection that have been really, really helpful for me. And the number one that I will recommend is Honoring Your Ancestors. This is by Mallorie Vaudoise. She also has, she was on the Magic and Mediums podcast where she talks about her book. This book is fantastic. It really is, it kind of really is a catch-all, gives you everything you need to know. She goes through who the ancestors are. There's a whole chapter on healing ancestral trauma, which I found fantastic. I mean, way more than I could have articulated in this video. Building your altar, making offerings, praying prayers, spiritual hygiene. Mediumship is for everyone. So, and then yeah, there's so much in here, and I can't even begin to explain how beneficial this book is if you're looking to step into this practice. This is the one book that I recommend that you start with, because she really did a fantastic job for kind of covering all the bases and getting you familiarized with this practice. Another one that is, it's not solely on Ancestral Veneration, but it does cover it, and it does have a lot of good stuff, is What is Remembered Lives. This is by Phoenix LeFae. She goes into working with deities and the Fae in this book as well, as a few other things, but there is a good section on working with the ancestors, so this is a good book to pick up if you want to have a little more information. There is one other book I just got that I'm reading through this month, so I'm not going to recommend it right now because I haven't read it, but I will probably do a video on my thoughts on it at some point later on. But it is on this subject, kind of, so hopefully, I think I'm going to grab it really quick so you guys can just to see it if you're curious. But I have not read this yet, so I do not want to recommend it quite yet. But this one just came out. This is called Of Blood and Bones. This is by Kate Fuller. Yeah, Kate Fuller, I think is how you say her last name. Right. Oh, I have a complicated last name too, guys. Philia. But anyway, so I'm hoping to read through that one and hopefully have more opinions on it. But the last book that I'm going to recommend, have read, has been around for quite some time. This is called The Pagan Book of the Living and Dying. This is by Starhawk. I'm sure most of you know Starhawk. She's been around forever. She's a very famous author. And this kind of goes through more of the grieving process and viewing death from a pagan's perspective. This was really fantastic to read through after losing my mother. But it has honoring and caring for a dying person, grieving a beloved relative, partner, or friend, planning a funeral or memorial service, disturbing personal possessions, making room in the home for a loved one's memory, just kind of that transition, basically. So this more so has to do with that process, but it still can tie in very heavily, and it's just nice to have a book from the pagan perspective. So that is something that I recommend. So that's it for this video today, guys. I really hope I covered everything I wanted to, and may have derailed and rambled a little bit there, but there's a lot to unpack in this subject. And if there's anything specific that I did not cover or didn't cover enough that you guys want me to elaborate on, I'm more than happy to do so. Hopefully I can remember all the links I'm supposed to put down below. And, I will do my best. And yeah, I'm just going to put on my glasses again so I can actually see what I'm doing. Thanks guys for watching, and I hope that this was really helpful. Again, please comment down below if I left anything out. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. And be sure to tune in to Wine and Witchcraft this month on Brittany's channel, who is Palmtreebewitchery. That is the 25th at 9 p.m. I will be on there with her and Justin once again, talking about the subject, talking about working with deities, drinking some wine, and kind of being goofy. With that being said, guys, thank you for watching, and as always, blessed.